Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Heartscape Studio, exploring our contribution to the world at the intersection of self-reflection, spiritual practice, and social action. We do that largely through the practice and study and teaching of the system of Reiki, practiced from the perspective of its Japanese origins. And on this channel, I share reflections and questions and challenges and concerns, practices and excitement that comes from my personal practice, as well as our community of practice that we host here at Heartscapes. If any of that feels intriguing to you, the best way to keep up with what is going on here is to subscribe to this channel, and I invite you to do so. The topic that I wanted to share with you today came directly from our community of practice. We host a twice monthly community of practice circle, and folks who have studied it with us as students or who are also Reiki practitioners in other lineages and are connected with us are welcome to come together and practice on a regular basis. We find this to be the best way to deepen and diligently commit to a practice over time, to build a system of support that can inspire us, enliven us, keep us accountable to sticking with the commitment to practice that we've made to ourselves. And quite a bit of juicy material comes out of these spaces, as I'm sure you can imagine. And the topic that really floated to the surface today for me and for us was the question of what do we need in order to feel welcome? In order to extend a genuine welcome to others? And what do we need to do internally to position ourselves to receive a heartful welcome from others? And this came out of the fact that today was the first time that we'd really had a gathering in person since the start of the COVID pandemic. We had been meeting online for the entirety of that time. And as we're slowly moving into a space of more openness as far as people being able to gather in person, we have reopened the studio for in-person classes, sessions, and gatherings with some safety precautions in place. And so this was the first time that this group of folks had been together physically in person for quite some time. And what came forward as I was leading our opening resonance, our kind of opening meditation to gather in the space, was this desire and this feeling of the importance of explicitly stating the welcome back, right? That me as the host of this space, but also the space itself, was really opening up a heartful welcome to these friends, these people who have helped me build this space, who hadn't been able to gather here for some time. And then I invited folks to share, as we often do, we kind of get everybody's voice in the room by circling in with a question that just feels relevant for the day. And the question ended up being, what do you need in order to feel welcome? Or what do you need in order to feel that you can extend a welcome to others? And the responses that came, sparked about an hour-long, 45-minute-long conversation. It was supposed to be just simply an opening resonance, but it became such an important topic because culturally and communally, we're in this space of reopening to a certain degree, differing in different locations. Of course, people are having different experiences in terms of the level of openness to return to in-person events. But in our area, there's been a return to the ability to gather together and publicly and privately. And what's been interesting to see is that on the one hand, many of us have experienced and spoken of and had to work through the tremendous amount of isolation and loneliness and all of the associated feelings of a time of quarantine. And my friends who are therapists and otherwise in helping professions, including my own, have really heard so many stories of the impact of being in an extended, isolated space. On the other hand, as we move into this reopening, there's this kind of converse but related experience that perhaps some of you have been feeling. I know I have been feeling it, of almost an apprehension about moving back to being in person. There's a certain way in which we've habituated to being by ourselves or only around a select small group of people. And the process of reentry is actually quite challenging when we have normalized a certain lifestyle over such a long period of time. And so now, my friends who are therapists are having a little bit of a different conversation and providing a different kind of support around the challenges of re-entering social spaces. And I guess I was just feeling, some version of that today as we gathered, and my instinct was to really have us put some intentional focus on this question of, what do we need in order to feel welcome? And I wanted to share a little bit of the responses that came forward, because I feel like there's probably others who are in this question of, what do I need to move into spaces and to create space for people in greater numbers than we have for quite some time. And so what we found in this long and rich conversation that we had was that there's, perhaps unsurprisingly, although it was a little surprising in the moment, there are many layers to what it takes for us to feel welcome. There is the kind of, there's the layers that involve other people, the people in particular who are hosting the spaces into which we are stepping. And that includes things like, being invited into this space. I need to, feel that there's been a genuine invitation extended, however that looks. I need to be listened to, when I share about, what would make me comfortable in a space and so on. But then there's this whole other layer, and what turns out to be the more important layer, the more critical and essential layer, which is internal. What do I need to have in place inside of myself in order to move into a social setting or a public setting or an unfamiliar setting, a challenging setting? And regardless of what, impediments or challenges might be present, to some degree at least, feel myself welcome. And some of the things that came forward were things like needing to have already gone through a process of becoming aware of the many different parts of myself and making some effort at least to make those parts welcome to myself. So in other words, and I've talked a little bit about this in other videos where we're focusing on processes of befriending parts of ourselves that we might not be super happy with, that we might have ignored for a long period of time. But if there are parts of ourselves that we are rejecting, that we are not making welcome inside of ourselves on a consistent basis, it's going to be challenging to feel that vulnerable, relaxed comfort of being welcomed by someone else, particularly if there's anything that feels challenging about the situation we're stepping into. So that was one piece, is, at whatever level each of us is interested and ready to do some form of work at understanding kind of the multiple layers of who we are and making some more space inside of ourselves to welcome those many layers inside of ourselves so that we can be more comfortable and more open to being welcomed by others. The system of Reiki is a beautiful practice for doing that kind of work, with practices and meditations that literally are designed to give us a greater sense of spaciousness, of space inside of ourselves to hold the wholeness and fullness of who we are, and much more self-awareness of those different parts, clearing away all of the junk and the garbage that is in the way of our whole and full self. So, it's not surprising that topic came up in the context of our Reiki circle. Another related piece that came up is needing to be in a practice of suspending judgment And that could be judgment about others. That could be judgment about our own self, our own worthiness to be in a space, our own capacity to move back out into the world when we've been isolated for so long. Suspending judgment about how other people might conduct a space, choices that they make. And that's not to say that we should not be discerning about who we spend time with. Certainly there are, people for whom it would not be useful or healthy or a good idea or beneficial to spend time with. But oftentimes there are people who are the right people for us to spend time with, or do have great value for us, or who we're in relationship with and spending time with them as part of our normal life, like family. And yet we still might hold layers of judgment. And so learning to discern, where am I being judgmental because there's some part of me that I'm perhaps, back to the first point, some part of me that I'm not accepting. And so I'm kind of projecting that onto others in the form of judgment, versus, no, I'm actually observing something that is not good for me to be around, right? And so I'm going to choose to not be in this space. Those are two different things. And so when I'm talking about in terms of, what we need in order to really relax into feeling welcome, is more this first one. Where are there places in me that just feel a little sticky, feel a little tense, feel unresolved, and that I haven't been willing to deal with or to look at, to modify, and therefore I'm projecting that as judgment onto others. That was another piece that came forward really strongly. And those pieces kind of stacked together, the willingness of others to invite us in, to make room for us, to listen to us when we share what we need to be comfortable, and conversely, our willingness to do all of those things for our own self on an ongoing basis so that we can really fully receive that welcome from others, was really a powerful message for our group today. And I just thought it might be a powerful message for any of you out there who might be feeling, any kind of strangeness or tension or anxiety or challenge in their experience of re-entering social spaces after such a long time of isolation. We did do a practice, a Reiki-based practice today that was really designed to embody and to locate in ourselves that sensation of welcome, to notice some of these layers that I've been talking about. I'm not going to share that here. I'm trying to keep this a little bit of a shorter video. I tend to go on a little bit longer in these videos than I would like because I'm so passionate about what I'm sharing, but it's nice to have a video from time to time that's 15 minutes or less. So if you are interested in being led through a practice that helps to connect with and generate a greater sense of welcome inside of yourself, so that you can feel a greater sense of welcome in other spaces, I would be very happy to create a separate video for that. Just drop a comment down below if that's something you'd be interested in. But for now, I'm just going to invite you to, reflect on the question of, what do you need in order to feel welcome in spaces that either are familiar or unfamiliar, that are challenging, that are new? What do you need in order to feel welcome? And how might you go about achieving a deeper sense of welcome, firstly inside of yourself and then within your connections, so that we can better navigate this time of re-entry after such a long period of isolation. And as you move into that process, may you be deeply provisioned for it. I love all of you, whether you're new here or whether you've been with me on this journey for a long time. If you'd like to stay with me for a little bit longer, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and reach out with your questions and interests. I'd love to respond either in this kind of dialogue or in writing. So until next time, I love you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.